Item Number SCP-Y-040. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. All known SCP-Y-040 manifestations and their aftermaths are to be rigorously monitored, secured, and studied to prevent widespread exposure to its anomalous effects. Due to the highly disruptive nature of SCP-Y-040's activities and its unpredictability, the following containment protocols are to be implemented. Thermal surveillance. Thermal imaging systems are to be deployed across major population centers within baseline reality. Surveillance is designed to detect cold spots indicative of SCP-Y-040's approach to a target location. These cold spots measure approximately 3 feet in diameter and exhibit movement patterns consistent with autonomous entities. If a cold spot is identified closing in on a structure, Mobile Task Force Zeta-0, Bad Bunch, is to be dispatched immediately to intercept the anomaly. Incident Response Protocol. Once a cold spot is confirmed, task forces equipped with infrared tracking devices and containment-grade thermal barriers are to secure the area. Civilian evacuation is a priority, with all affected individuals relocated to a secure perimeter no less than 500 meters from the target structure. While thermal barriers may slow SCP-Y-040 entities, no methods have been fully successful in halting a manifestation. The goal is to minimize civilian casualties and public exposure via preemptive evacuation. Post-manifestation recovery. After the 15-day anomalous event concludes and the target has disappeared, personnel are to secure the wreath left behind at the site of the vanished structure. Wreaths are collected and transported to Site Y-1 for cataloging and analysis. Upon disappearance of the building, these wreaths become entirely non-anomalous and serve as the only physical evidence of SCP-Y-040's activity. All witnesses to an SCP-Y-040 manifestation are to be administered Class C amnestics. Reports of unusual sounds, poltergeist activity, or unexplained cold spots within affected areas must be suppressed using Foundation media protocols. Local authorities and emergency services are to be provided with a plausible cover story, such as structural collapse due to natural disasters or localized gas explosions. Non-anomalous wreaths recovered post-manifestation are to be stored in a secure, non-thermalized archive at Site Y-1. Each wreath is to be tagged with detailed records of its associated incident. Active SCP-Y-040 wreaths, if discovered before manifestation, are to be handled with thermally insulated equipment, transported to a specialized containment chamber at Site Y-1. Research and preventative measures. Ongoing thermal surveillance remains critical for detecting pre-manifestation cold spots. These anomalies appear approximately 1 hour before SCP-Y-040 wreaths are placed on a structure, providing a narrow window for intervention. Efforts to develop countermeasures to intercept or neutralize SCP-Y-040 entities during this phase are prioritized. Current research includes exploring methods to disrupt the spatial distortions associated with SCP-Y-040. Front organizations posing as emergency response or urban planning agencies monitor neighborhoods with higher frequencies of SCP-Y-040 incidents. Residents are educated on general safety practices under non-anomalous pretexts, such as preventing unexplained phenomena or addressing purported gas leaks. By maintaining these rigorous containment and monitoring procedures, the Foundation aims to reduce SCP-Y-040's impact on civilian populations and gather critical data for long-term neutralization efforts. Description: SCP-Y-040 is an anomalous wreath composed of traditional holiday materials, such as evergreen branches, holly berries, and decorative ribbons. While visually inconspicuous, SCP-Y-040 exhibits highly dangerous and escalating anomalous properties when used as a decoration indoors or outdoors. SCP-Y-040 disappears entirely between manifestations, but can occasionally be tracked using infrared technology. These sensors detect the cold signatures of a small moving cold spot, believed to be one of the associated entities, carrying a smaller, circular cold spot with a much lower temperature reading, identified as the Wreath. The entity appears to deliver SCP-Y-040 to a random household. Behavioral stages. Stage 1, Days 1 through 5. During this initial phase, SCP-Y-040 remains inconspicuous and largely ignored by individuals in its vicinity. There are no overt signs of anomalous activity, aside from the fact that the Wreath can seemingly not be removed from its original set location. Stage 2, Days 6 through 10, auditory anomalies begin to manifest. Subjects report faint, localized sounds, such as distant footsteps or soft rustling, which progressively grow closer over time. High-sensitivity recording devices detect distorted audio of cackling, laughter, and faint conspiratorial whispers. These sounds remain imperceptible to individuals within the affected structure without technological assistance. During this period, mild poltergeist-like activity begins. Items may be displaced, small objects inexplicably fall, and food items are found with small, bite-sized portions missing. Temperatures within the structure fluctuate, with noticeable cold spots detected using thermal imaging. Some individuals report the sensation of breathing on exposed skin, particularly around the legs, at a height of approximately 3 feet. Stage 3, Days 11 through 13. Physical interactions intensify. Cold spots begin to follow individuals, and victims report sharp, painful bites from unseen entities. Infrared imaging reveals small, humanoid figures approximately 3 feet in height. These entities exhibit sharp teeth and hyper-aggressive behavior. Attacks escalate to include objects being violently flung at individuals, resulting in injuries. Victims report entities clinging to their legs or backs, inflicting significant damage through biting. Attempts to repel these entities through physical force produce audible impacts, confirming their semi-corporeal nature. Entities display remarkable agility, scaling walls and entering through windows or small ducts. On Day 13, these entities gain the ability to anomalously manifest inside closed spaces, such as closets and cupboards. Stage 4, Days 14 through 15. Anomalous activity reaches its peak. Entities exhibit constant aggression, and all individuals within the building are relentlessly pursued. Victims who remain indoors invariably succumb to exsanguination due to continuous attacks. On Day 15, the building undergoes a catastrophic spatial distortion event, vanishing entirely along with any remaining bodies. Survivors who evacuate before this event often report observing small, cold spots or faint anomalies lingering nearby, as though observing them from a distance. Rarely, a snow globe is found in a random location within Provisional Reality-Y-1. These globes contain miniaturized versions of the vanished structure, encased in perpetual snowfall. The globes are composed of an anomalous durable material similar to glass, impervious to all known methods of damage. Addendum Y-040-1. Observational Notes. Infrared and thermal imaging confirm that the entities associated with SCP-Y-040 possess humanoid forms and exhibit coordinated behaviors, often whispering to one another in a language yet to be deciphered. Efforts to capture these entities for study have been unsuccessful, as they dematerialize upon the disappearance of the affected structure. Addendum Y-040-2 Snow Globe Analysis. Examination of recovered snow globes reveal anomalous spatial properties. Attempts to retrieve the miniaturized structures have failed, as the globes resist all known methods of opening. The snowfall within the globes displays no discernible pattern, and preliminary testing suggests a temporal stasis effect within the contained space. Incident Report Y040-PRY1. Location: Residential District within Provisional Reality-Y-1. Summary: Foundation thermal surveillance detected an anomalous cold spot, measuring approximately 0.9 meters in diameter at 0213 local time. The cold spot was observed moving along an abandoned residential street before entering a dilapidated two-story home. Mobile Task Force Zeta-0, Bad Bunch, was dispatched, arriving at the location within 17 minutes. Upon arrival, personnel observed an SCP-Y-040 Wreath instance affixed to the interior of the front door. On day 1 of the event, initial observations suggested no anomalous activity beyond SCP-Y-040's presence. MTF operatives staged around the area, however, reported faint, indistinct laughter originating from the house. Analysis of audio equipment confirmed the presence of distorted voices and occasional cackling at frequencies imperceptible to the human ear. By day 7, surveillance footage captured items within the house being suddenly displaced, with utensils appearing to rearrange themselves on countertops. Bite marks measuring 2.5 centimeters in diameter and consistent with anomalously sharp dental impressions were discovered on the rations of the MTF operatives stationed outside the house. Multiple attempts to document these occurrences were met with equipment malfunctions attributed to SCP-Y-040's reality-distorting effects. Day 11 marked an escalation. Thermal imaging captured localized cold spots trailing personnel inspecting the house. Agent Dawson reported feeling a, quote, cold breath against her exposed calf, following minor lacerations consistent with teeth marks. A physical sweep yielded no conclusive evidence of the entities responsible. On day 14, activity reached its peak. Objects within the structure were propelled violently, narrowly missing several Foundation personnel. Agent Rise was thrown into a wall by what appeared to be an invisible force. Simultaneously, cackling intensified, interspersed with high-pitched whispers repeating incomprehensible phrases. Personnel observed faint impressions of diminutive humanoid forms in the dust covering the wooden floors, moving around erratically. At 23:59 on day 15, the house was consumed in a spatial distortion event, leaving no trace except for the non-anomalous wreath left behind during the final escalation event of SCP-Y-040. Recovery teams secured the non-anomalous wreath for transport to Site Y1. Incident Report Y040-12. Date: December 1st, 2000. Location: Ohio, USA. Summary: Thermal surveillance identified a cold spot moving toward a two-story house in an otherwise unremarkable suburban area. The cold spot was tracked as it scaled the exterior of the building and entered through a second-story window. Approximately 1 hour later, an SCP-Y-040 Wreath instance was discovered on the front door by agents disguised as municipal workers conducting a gas line inspection. Day 3 of the event marked the onset of subtle poltergeist activity. The family occupying the home reported small objects disappearing, only to reappear in unexpected locations. On day 6, the youngest child, a 16-year-old girl, claimed she, quote, felt something hugging her legs while walking through the hallway. Her parents dismissed the incident until scratches resembling claw marks appeared on her ankles the following morning. On day 10, residents began reporting chills throughout the house. Audio devices placed by Foundation personnel picked up faint whispers during the night, though the family remained unaware of the recordings. A particularly disturbing segment of audio featured a distorted, high-pitched set of voices seemingly singing a discordant, jolly tune out of sync. By day 13, the manifestations became openly hostile. The father was struck by a flying vase, resulting in a minor concussion. The mother reported seeing a small, shadowy figure dart across the kitchen before vanishing under a table. Thermal imaging confirmed the presence of multiple cold spots congregating in the dining room. On day 15, Foundation personnel evacuated the family moments before the spatial distortion event occurred. The house vanished without incident, leaving behind the non-anomalous SCP-Y-040 wreath in its place. Family was administered Class C amnestics, and a plausible cover story of a sinkhole collapse was disseminated to the public. Incident Report Y040-22. Date: December 19th, 2024. Location: Abandoned shopping mall, Birmingham, UK. Summary: An unusual manifestation of SCP-Y-040 occurred within an abandoned shopping mall. Thermal imaging detected a cold spot roaming the mall's corridors before fixing an SCP-Y-040 wreath instance to the entrance of a former toy store. Initial observations suggested minimal activity. However, by day 5, security cameras installed by Foundation agents began recording small, fast-paced cold spots in thermal imaging. Attempts to enhance the footage resulted in system failures and corrupted files. By day 9, loud banging noises and cackling echoed throughout the mall, originating from the toy store. Day 12 marked a significant escalation. Thermal surveillance captured dozens of humanoid figures, small, shadowy, and disproportionately thin, emerging from the store and spreading throughout the mall. Personnel reported overwhelming sensations of dread and were forced to retreat as objects were hurled in their direction. One operative sustained injuries after being bitten by an entity that was briefly clung to his leg. The wound exhibited teeth marks, inconsistent with any known species. On day 15, the mall was consumed by a spatial distortion event. Personnel stationed nearby reported hearing what they described as, quote, carnival laughter, before the structure vanished. An SCP-Y-040 non-anomalous wreath was recovered at the former entrance of the toy store. Analysis revealed faint traces of saliva on the wreath, though no biological markers could be identified. File reference: Incident Y040-12K AGR. Subject name: Jeremy Caldwell. Date of incident. Location: Minnesota, USA. Sensitive content warning. Incident overview. The following narrative was retrieved via SCP-Y-010, Death Knell. After inputting the name Jeremy Caldwell and his date of birth, Caldwell, a 56-year-old farmer residing alone with his dog, Hunter, became an unwitting victim of SCP-Y-040's anomalous activity. The Foundation was unable to intercept this manifestation prior to its culmination, resulting in Caldwell's death. Notably, physical evidence recovered from the scene included blood samples belonging to an SCP-Y-040 entity, marking the first and only confirmed biological sample associated with the anomaly. The following is a full death knell of Caldwell's events, narrated by Dr. Stearns, head researcher of SCP-Y-010. Begin log.
The farmer's shotgun trembled slightly in his hands as he scanned the dimly lit barn. The heavy scent of straw, mingled with the metallic tang of blood, filled the air. Jeremy Caldwell wiped the sweat from his brow, his fingers trembling as he adjusted his grip on the old weapon. The laughter echoed again. That awful sound. high-pitched and broken, as if it were coming from tiny, unseen mouths just beyond the edge of sight. His dog, Hunter, whimpered at his feet, tail tucked between his legs, eyes darting toward the shadowy corners of the barn. The cold spots, Jeremy could feel them, were moving again, brushing against his legs like icy whispers. It had started innocently enough. 2 weeks prior, a wreath had appeared on his front door, a simple circle of evergreen branches adorned with small, unassuming ornaments. He didn't think much of it at first. Someone being neighborly, he'd muttered. He had more important things to worry about, fixing the tractor, tending to his crops, and making sure Hunter was fed and happy. Then came the sounds. Quiet at first, like faint scratching at the walls or the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. By the 6th day, items began shifting on their own. His coffee mug, once left by the sink, turned up in the pantry. A bale of hay was found torn apart in the barn. On the 8th day, Jeremy swore he heard voices, a mix of conspiratorial whispers and stifled giggles, though Hunter never barked, only growled low and uneasy. The cold followed next. Small, shifting patches of icy air that moved through his home and barn like living things. Hunter refused to leave his side, barking at corners and refusing to eat. The laughter grew louder, clawing at Jeremy's sanity, until finally, on the 11th day, he saw them. Tiny figures no larger than a child's doll, but grotesque in form. Their bodies were spindly, their limbs disproportionately long, ending in gnarled claws. Sharp, glinting teeth filled their grinning mouths, and their sunken, beady eyes seemed to burn with malicious glee. Jeremy had shot the first one on reflex, the thunderous boom of his shotgun deafening in the small hallway of his house. The creature shrieked, its tiny body splattering dark, viscous blood across the wall before it disappeared into a blur of motion. The others scattered, but not before one of them latched onto Hunter's back, sinking its teeth into the dog's flesh. Jeremy tore it off, his hands trembling with rage and fear, and crushed it under his boot. The thing left behind a blackened smear, its blood soaking into the wooden floor. The following days were a siege. Jeremy fortified his house as best he could, boarding up windows and doors. He barely slept, the constant cackling and scuttling of the entities echoing in his ears. Every time he thought he had killed one, another would appear, and their numbers seemed endless. The shotgun blasts rang out across the farmstead, each shot followed by a moment of silence, before the laughter returned, louder and more mocking than before. On the 15th day, Jeremy's resolve broke. His house was a ruin, his body covered in bites and scratches. Hunter had succumbed hours earlier, his limp body lying in the corner of the living room. The creatures swarmed now, their tiny claws scratching at his boarded-up doors and windows, their laughter a cacophony of madness. He fired his last shot and missed. The recoil nearly knocked him over as the front door finally gave way. Jeremy Caldwell screamed as they descended upon him, their teeth sinking into his flesh, tearing at his legs and arms. He fell to the floor, his blood pooling beneath him, his vision fading as the cold consumed him. The last thing he heard was the sound of tiny feet dragging Hunter's body toward the front yard, followed by the mournful creak of his home's walls, collapsing inward as if being devoured by the night itself. A distorted jolly song was being sung as the entities watched Jeremy fade from consciousness.
The farmhouse was found missing following reports of unusual activity in the area. Locals described hearing gunshots, strange noises emanating from the property over the prior days. Upon arrival, Foundation operatives discovered only a single, non-anomalous wreath hanging on a broken fence post at the edge of the property. Infrared scans detected residual cold signatures indicative of SCP-Y-040 entities, though no active anomalies were present. Blood samples were recovered from the barn and the house's remains, later identified as belonging to SCP-Y-040 entities. The sample has since been secured in Site-Y1's bioanomalous storage for ongoing research. Jeremy Caldwell's disappearance has officially been attributed to a tragic farm accident, with local authorities providing a cover story involving a collapsing grain silo. All witnesses to the gunfire or strange occurrences have been administered glassy amnestics. The importance of this death knell cannot be understated, as Jeremy Caldwell is the only person on record with the ability to see the SCP-Y-040 entities and hear them without the assistance of technology. Further analysis of this death knell and Jeremy Caldwell's events leading up to his death were the subject of intense study. The body of Jeremy Caldwell's dog, Hunter, was never recovered. Note: blood sample recovered during this incident remains the only physical evidence of SCP-Y-040 entities. Research is ongoing to determine its composition and potential applications in neutralizing or deterring SCP-Y-040 manifestations. Further thermal surveillance protocols have been expanded to prevent similar incidents. This is Director Waller, signing off on another report at Site-Y1. I hope you consider subscribing to stay up to date with our most recent findings. I eagerly look forward to having your audience in future reports.